For really intelligent people, it's really hard to get enlightened because of the high dependence on their minds. And getting awakened to your own self nature demands that you throw your mind away. But there's no way you can deliberately throw your mind away. It only happens when you see that, or you understand that knowledge is not the way to awakening to your own true nature. You can't think or read your way into conceptual understanding that allows you to have an awakening experience where your mind in the center of your consciousness no longer rests in the head and the brain, but sinks into your body and your chest. When I say you have to sink into your heart area, I'm not talking about heart in the figurative sense, meaning love or acceptance or openness, but the literal sense of dropping your attention into your body. Now, Zen people, if you see them do meditation, do so in a cross-legged stance, sitting with their two hands like this in an open stance near their genitals. The attention has to drop into your body. You got to forget about understanding. So I ask you, what are you here for? And I don't mean literally here at this satsang, but in general. Are you seeking true understanding of the nature of reality or of God? Or are you seeking God yourself? If you realize you're seeking God yourself or your own true nature, you have to realize that most of everybody's efforts in spirituality is focused on understanding. Even when I was with Robert, and he'd say, "You don't exist. The world doesn't exist." That they're just images, a play of light, an optical mirage. All the time I was thinking, what the fuck is he talking about? How can he say, I don't exist? How can he say that the world is not real? How can we understand Ramana or Nisargadatta? You could read Nisargadatta 30,000 times without understanding. And if you come to satsang to understand things about spirituality, such as what is the nature of the absolute or nothingness or somethingness, you'll never get anything. This is not an intellectual task. You literally have to become dumb as a rock. And I mean literally, figuratively, because obviously you can't be a rock or know how dumb a rock is. But your mind has to stop moving. You have to stop trying to understand the nature of consciousness, the nature of your mind, what yourself is with your mind. This is why it appears that enlightenment happens spontaneously to most people when they least expect it. Because a point has to happen where the mind suddenly drops away. And you're really resting in yourself, absent the mind, for the first time in living memory. And how do you make that happen? Well, probably the worst way is to read books about what Ramana says about his experiences. Because you'll never get his experience by reading about his experience. Your mind has to drop away. Now you can do that artificially by meditation. You sit in Zen meditation, and if you sit still enough, and try to do nothing, just empty your mind. Drop your attention into your body. That's about all you can do. Other than that, you just have to be patient and wait for it to happen without being aware that you're waiting for it to happen. You have to be comfortable without knowing anything, of being completely in the dark, hopelessly lost, with nowhere to turn and nothing to do. Do you know, I think for most people, they would find it extremely difficult to sit and do nothing. They would feel a pent-up energy inside, struggling for some understanding or movement. They want to understand why the world is as it is, or they try to understand what enlightenment is like, or what Ramana's world was like, or what Robert's world is like, and they immerse themselves in his words. If you go to one of the Robert Adams sites, there are many of them out there, what do? All day long, they post Robert Adams quotes. If you're quoting a guru, you don't have him or her. You're thinking about them and saying, oh, that feels comfortable for me to agree to that proposition that he just said. But you can't get there no matter what you do with your mind. You can't really throw your mind away. You can pretend to for 5 minutes, and then it comes back. There's one way I suggest can help. And then that is to watch the mind, not only in meditation, but during the day. I think I've told you many times that I've got a very male-oriented mind. He likes to tinker and think about what ifs. What's the proper way to build a house, to construct an airplane, how a submarine works. How the markets work, whether it's for Bitcoin or for gold, and how do you make money off of that? It's all about how to. That's what the mind is for, to tell us how to do things, how to protect myself from COVID, what kind of mask to wear, whether we should get a booster or not. But it's real hard to do nothing. because the mind will grab you unless you quickly drop into not thinking and hold yourself in that place. And then, even then, if that happens, if you're empty minded because you force yourself to be, it's a temporary state, which you may repeat twice a day in meditation if you're good at it. If you're not good at meditation, your mind will still be running and distracting you when you're sitting in meditation. And you'll not even be able to attain the state of no mind when you make an attempt at formal meditation. I guess you can say that spirituality is all about losing your mind, or at least not let it force you to focus all of your attention on what it's saying. And you can watch what it says to you hour after hour, day after day, week after week, the kind of trivial things it's occupied with. It's occupied with utter shit all the time. And how do you do that in yourself? How do you rob yourself of the opportunity of being absolutely empty and still? And in that state of stillness, to realize a life without boundaries, of complete freedom. Part of it also is, even when you attain those states through meditation, they don't take hold in everyday life. You're still too mental in everyday life. I guess if you could practice 7 or 8 hours a day, being able to go deeply into meditation to the extent that the mind stops and you rest in unity with the world, something might happen. But I don't think so. Even then, I used to practice 7 or 8 hours of meditation a day for a long, long period of time, and nothing happened. For me, something happened when I ran into Robert. And after 3 years of being with him, about 3 years, I stopped thinking about what is he talking about? What is he saying? What's the truth behind it? I gave up. I gave up my autonomy and decided just to rest in his presence. I surrendered to, you might say, God in a sense, knowing that no matter what I had done through 40 years of intense practice, got me anywhere towards a real realization. I realized I was hopelessly lost, and the things that I had been doing for 40 years does not produce an awakening of any sort. So I surrendered. I'll just do what he tells me. I'll just go to satsang. I'll hang out with him for lunches once a week. And 4 more years passed in this way. And finally, he was taken away from me because he moved to Sedona, and we were in Los Angeles. And when he left, I felt abandoned. And all that I did was lay on a couch and listen to chanting music all day long, mostly Muktananda chanting tapes. And I had 2 awakenings, maybe 4 or 6 weeks after he left, when I was just lying alone, listening to chanting, no longer going to satsangs, no longer trying to figure out what he was talking about. Instead, just stopping the seeking. I no longer looked within. I no longer read anything about Ramana or Robert or any other spiritual teacher. All that I did was laid there or take walks, listening to chanting with the tape player. I could feel, in a way, that everything was deepening in my experience that way. I was no longer seeking. I saw that seeking impedes real changes. It's a mental thing, desire to know. Even the desire to know what enlightenment was like is a seeking. You got to stop seeking. You got to stop trying to understand what enlightenment is like or how to get there. You give up on your will and say, God, I can't do it. I don't know how to wake up. I've tried my best to wake up. And then I took a shower. I remember it very vividly. I was in the shower, and for the millionth time, it seemed, I looked within to search for that source where sensation was experienced, the feeling of water hitting my body. Where did that take place inside of me? As it touched my head and my back in a very pleasurable way. And I suddenly realized that I was looking within, and there was nothing within. It was pure, hollow emptiness. Now, by emptiness, I don't mean I looked within and I saw a vast cosmos of emptiness. It means that I looked within for my source. And I saw that there was no source anywhere. There was no entity that was at Musica that could be found. The subject could not be found. The subject is void. There is no subject. And boom. I was hit over the head with an axe. There was no Ed Musica inside of me. There was no core central place or character at all. I was seeing everything, anything, I should say. I was empty. I looked within, and all as I could find is an inner dark space that was illuminated with light that I had begun seeing 30 years before, when my third eye opened. There was a light within that permeated everything, a white light. Before that, when I first started meditating, when I looked within, it was just like being in a dark room. I couldn't see or hear or feel anything inside, but I continued to hear and see things outside. So it is a process of getting to know myself subjectively, to study hearing, seeing. In other words, consciousness, not things in consciousness, but consciousness itself. Awakening is the result of ceasing seeking and instead just study beingness. Then everything begins unfolding, because you're no longer seeking after an idea. What is enlightenment like? What is awakening? What is the truth? What exists? What is reality? It's just shutting the fuck up and being with myself. And for most people, they find that unacceptable to just shut up and be with yourself. And you don't be with yourself in a striving sort of way of looking at the emptiness within and trying to see if there's something that you missed. Because that's a continuation of seeking. And that's what Robert was really about, is not seeking, but instead of just being yourself. And that seems boring to people. How can you just be with yourself? What's to be gained by doing that? And what's gained by doing that is freedom. Freedom from seeking. Freedom from the desire to know or to create something new. It allows you to live a different kind of life, of not seeking or doing. Instead, you allow yourself to become nothing. Nobody to be admired, nobody to be loved, nobody to pile up excess, nobody to make money, but just to be in yourself by calmly sinking into yourself and with a silent mind. Just rest there doing nothing. Not striving to become a doctor. Hear that, Vesselina? Not striving to make lots of money, Michael. Not striving to understand Ramana. Not even striving to become nothing. But no striving whatsoever. Just a resting. Do you know how hard that is for people? To just be still and to be with themselves, doing nothing. It's infinitely difficult. We can force ourselves to do it for a bit through meditation or just deliberately trying not to think about anything, but that's like hearing that you should ignore the 600-pound gorilla in the room. And you'd keep looking for that gorilla with that in mind. The mind has to be at peace, so to speak, or else to totally give up trying to understand. And I couldn't give up trying to understand and just be, or to accomplish things or to do. I was always my entire life struggling to understand things. And why? Because as a kid, I got a lot of praise and recognition because of my ability to understand things. and to be obsessed with knowing and using my mind to understand, do mental math, to think like an engineer all the time. I couldn't just relax and give it up. What would you feel like if you were not captured by the obsession of the moment? Vesselina, what would you feel like if you didn't have to worry about becoming a doctor anymore? You could just drop that. Michael, what if you didn't have to seek wealth in order to have an easy life in the future where you didn't have to think, you could just meditate all the time? And you didn't have to take care of people that you know financially. Enrique, what if you didn't have to seek spiritual perfection, a deeper enlightenment, a deeper understanding, deeper experiences? Ian, what if you didn't have to seek to know anymore or even to be? They had no seeking to do, no incompletion, nowhere to go, nothing to strive for. When you seek in spirituality and you get nowhere, and that you understand that seeking is the worst way to get anything even close to enlightenment, what do? Most people snap and take hold of a doctrine they can understand. They rest in Jesus, surrender to the idea of Jesus. They surrender to the idea of heaven or something like that. They pick the level of understanding they can understand and they stay there and they stick to that doctrine rather than to try to understand themselves any more deeply. There's safety when you can stop in understanding and just grab a doctrine. Look at how suddenly Stevie and Mary dropped trying to understand themselves, if that's what they were doing, and instead grabbed onto a doctrine the doctrine of the Son of God being the vehicle to take you to heaven. I don't know how absurd that notion seems to you, but it seems that way to me. From the depths of real spirituality, of quietly investigating yourself by being with yourself, and then have that taken away from them and throwing themselves out of the Sangha. They graduated to a simplistic doctrine of born-again Christianism. This is what people do in authoritarian societies. They just give up and follow their leader. But what if you gave up? And instead of grabbing a doctrine, you surrendered the desire to become enlightened. And threw that away. And instead, you just rested. Maybe listening to endless chanting like I did when Robert left. Or to do nothing and just sit in your bedroom or your living room and go about your day, just being aware. Not of anything specifically, but just being aware of how you feel and what you feel and how you feel it. Be aware of the pressure of your chair against your butt, your back. Be aware of the emptiness within. Be aware of how your mind is constantly trying to engage you in conversation or to force you to be a passive listener watching it talk to you. Then you might realize you're separate from your mind because you're watching the mind. It's really a strange experience to see from a place of being relatively empty that your mind is just talking all the time about shit. Stuff no sane person would ever pay much attention to because it's too childlike, too simplistic, or too complicated. Many minds go all day long trying to understand complexities. Others trying to understand they can alter their behavior in order to get something. Very few rest in a place. where they can touch a sleeping cat and feel love for the cat with all your might without thinking anything. Just have that feeling of love fill you up. Or watch how your cat walks or your dog, what he or she pays attention to, how the dog circles 2 or 3 times before it lays down, how a cat approaches a food bowl and smells before it eats. Can you do that with yourself? Just watch what you do and how you do it. When you get hungry, you rush right away to fill the emptiness with food or drink. Or can you just rest in that feeling of being hungry and see what it really feels like all the way by going into it deeper and deeper? Instead of taking care of a usual need you'd rush to take care of, instead feel it growing within you and doing nothing about it. And what happens? You can learn to be free of your body and your mind by not immediately giving into your regular behaviors whenever confronted by something like that, like hunger or lust or any other emotion or feeling. When you can not act to fulfill desires, there's a great deal of peace that comes with that. Tonight, find out, or to find out, I should say, that you don't have to react. You don't have to eat something when hungry or drink something when thirsty or move when your back starts getting cramped up when you're sitting in a chair. You can just let it hurt. That's why Robert says, don't react to the environment. Just feel it, endure it. Endure what's happening to your body. Endure the hungers of the body and do nothing. Doing nothing is the highest spiritual practice. The ability to do nothing goes a long, long way towards enlightenment. Do nothing. Be dumb as a rock. All of these sound abhorrent to most everyday people who think of that as being like death, not proactive, not active. But just doing nothing is a waste of time, a waste of one's life. But when you do nothing, You have an opportunity to sink ever deeper into your own life and to experience an ever deeper life, an ever deeper life force. The energies within that are hidden mostly, and to have a huge energy awakening. To realize God within requires a lot of silence and giving up of activity. You just feel more and more relaxed to be inside yourself. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. And just be at peace with yourself. Being at peace with yourself yields enormous results in a short period of time, because you find that there's so much peace in doing nothing. You don't have to satisfy your hunger immediately. You don't have to move because there's a kink in your back or your neck. You can just suffer it until it goes away by itself. There's nothing for you to attain, nowhere to go, no practices. Just be yourself. Now, that sounds to most people, be yourself, like something that you think you do all the time is being yourself, but you're not. You act on the urgings and the teachings that your mind supplies you. When I was at Mount Baldy, everything was done in silence, with signals given by bells or wood clacker. You didn't have to think at all. You just followed others. And you kept your mouth shut, no talking. Mind focused on your koan, or else just on resting in yourself in satsang and meditation, just resting in yourself. Existence became very simple then. You just did on a daily basis what you had to do according to the chores assigned to you. Just told to be aware of everything that you could be aware of, but without straining to be aware. You can only really be aware when you're no longer trying to do anything, including being aware. Do nothing and be aware of what doing nothing feels like. A lot of people up there learn how to do nothing for a limited amount of time. But when their stay at Mount Baldy was over with, they rushed back into everyday life and lived it exactly the same. Can you be without nothing to gain? Nowhere to go. just satisfied being yourself, feeling your life passing. Feel how restless you are when you've got a dozen things to do and so little time to do it. Every moment is a mini crisis of some sort. Can you imagine yourself doing nothing? Nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing to learn, nothing to seek. And to stop all of that drivenness, to learn how to practice meditation without a drive to attain anything. No enlightenment, no awakening. Just be yourself, whatever that means. That rested state is so hard to get to. And one of the best methods that I could think of is just to intentionally sit 2 or 3 times a day for half an hour or so and just relax. Sink into yourself. Don't search for anything. Listen to the sounds. Feel the feelings that you feel doing nothing. Are you restless? You let your mind spin and follow the leads that it wants to take you. Or are you able to hold on to your emptiness and do nothing? When you can do that, awakening is not far away. When you can learn to just rest, be yourself without striving to be yourself. Just let go and practice letting go all the time without the intent of being free of practice. It is kind of a possible thing to think about. How can you practice being nothing without practicing? How can you practice being empty? Because that practice itself fills you up. You have to have, though, the thought inside of you of not being caught by the environment, not being caught by your own desires to do something in the environment, not be caught by desires to attain any state like enlightenment or nothingness, but just to be satisfied with being as you are. And doing that can be self-fulfilling in the sense that you practice a little resting or relaxing and doing nothing. And if you find out it makes you feel better, you may feel sleepy, but the tension you usually feel throughout your body disappears. or it at least gets lessened every day that you practice it. Give up the idea of getting enlightened and just be aware. Be aware of consciousness, not the objects in consciousness, but be aware of the fact that you see. What is that? How does that take place? Where is it happening? In you. You don't spin around harder and harder trying to understand where your core is. You find it by relaxing and surrendering to yourself, to God, to Jesus. You don't find it in seeking quotes from Ramana or Robert or Nisargadatta and posting them on Facebook and then discussing it over and over again with lots of people. There's no peace, no rest, no understanding in that. No. You must all have certain questions that you ponder, that you seek the understanding of. What are they? Where is that hidden seeking in you that's going on day to day? What is that desire? Is it a desire to be enlightened? Is it a desire to know yourself? Is it a desire to have no desires? Don't you see? No matter what you try to do or try to understand, it's always something separate from where you are at the moment. So accept where you are at the moment and don't try to move from it. There's nothing to do, nowhere to go. You're already complete and resting in yourself. When you realize you can't get it with mind or doing, any comments or questions?
Edgy, I never thought I would hear such words. I have to say that, and I can't say anything more because I can't add anything to it. I can't take anything away. I thought I had walked away from mundanity and I suck it down and revel in it and adorn myself with it in every way. And you brought me back to something so simple and so pure and so exquisite. Almost everything that I ever felt I dismissed, and now I can own it deeper and more exquisite in abiding grace in a way I never could have felt. I would play this satsang. I have a friend I would want to share this with. She is lost in a confluence of things trying to find her way. And I said, let it go, put it down, think, be dumb as a rock. Stop trying to be because you're only becoming. You're not aware of awareness. Let it go. I love you. You are my Sadguru. This was exquisite, more powerful than I could have ever imagined. I love you.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
To me, it seems so simple.
Well, only because of you.
Just to do nothing.
Wow.
Already the life force is fully alive in you. God is fully alive in you. Nothingness and the absolute is already there, but you can't find it deliberately. You can only be it. And being it requires not being guided by thinking or habit. Give it all up. Give it all up. Your whole life, just surrender to yourself, to your hidden self. You don't have to take a vow of poverty. You be a povert, one drenched in poverty. You don't have to seek bliss. You can be bliss by relaxing inside, not searching for anything. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. And that's almost impossible to find by people who are doers or studiers or attainers. When you seek the self, you lose the self. When you seek to understand yourself, the seeking intrudes and prevents you from being yourself. Anything you do consciously to change or to do takes you away from where you are. So you have to be happy doing nothing. Imagine if you went to school for 12 years and you went to class and you did nothing. You went to gym and you did nothing. You went to mathematics, arithmetic class, and you sat there doing nothing. You went to your sociology forum, you did nothing. You turned on the news, and the narrator said nothing. That there's no narration, that's important. There's no understanding that you need to have for any reason. The greatest gift is to not have to do anything. Mark realizes how great it is to be retired. That fucking work can really get to you. That's all that Frank wants, is to get to do nothing, to be himself. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, hi, Edgy. My greatest problem is trying to put into words what it is that I experience. Like, coming up with a Marx model of what it feels like for me or what I perceive. So that's a good problem to have, because attainment is not a problem for me, in my opinion. But really, when it seems like being incarnated as a human, the body mind is an enormous distraction. So the human that is born claims to be the horse when it's actually the cart. And the horse is actually awareness, which has infinitely more capabilities than the body mind does. So the body mind reduces everything. No matter how brilliant you are, your awareness has much more depth, much more ability than your mind does. So the body needs to become transparent, needs to acquiesce, needs to have equilibrium in order to go deeper into what we really are, which is the awareness that the body finds itself, which is within the body's within the field of awareness. So once one becomes the field of awareness and identifies there's a whole new existence that happens. So when you say you're doing nothing, yeah, my body's doing nothing, but I'm experiencing untold, amazing. I'm experiencing amazing stuff, and that persists when I come back to my everyday existence. It's not an ephemeral or a temporary thing. It's an ongoing thing. So that's all I want to say. It's still a work in progress.
But isn't that a bifurcation in a way? Isn't that sort of projecting something outside of yourself other than simply the seamlessness of pure being? There's no dialogue or duologue or any other logos. I mean, it's simply what I said, just so simple a thing is trying to embrace the fact that I don't have to respond to everything becomes a freedom which I didn't know that I had. And that is my takeaway today. And Mark, it isn't anything construed in any way, except there's sometimes I know you see pure being, and sometimes I find that it hues to split mind, and I keep trying to walk back from that precipice. Edgy, you took me way back from it today, and I don't know what I just said, but somehow, I mean, it meant something to me. And Mark, I love you for everything that you share, and it makes me want to come back on the other days, because I love everyone here, and the love that is requited by everyone here is my treasure in this world, every moment, every day, and it's a miracle. Thank you again.
Anybody else? I won't call on people. I just want people that are ready to pop to ask a question or to say something.
Just wanted to say thank you. That was really, really powerful. And so much of what I needed to hear. I can feel myself more and more. What Jay said, you don't have to respond to everything, is so true. And can feel myself more and more being in that space of just dumb as a rock doing nothing, and realizing that I don't have to respond. But there's this witness that's aware of me getting triggered a little bit, but yet I can feel the emotions coming up in that trigger, but yet I don't feel like they're as powerful as they have been in the past. And so
Yes.
it's really powerful to realize that you don't have to fix it, you don't have to do anything. And even when I'm aware of that self that wants to come forward and do it, having the power not to act on it and to be able to rest in that self and to just kind of just be aware of the trigger without actually, it feels like I can feel myself being triggered without actually being sucked into it, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yes.
That's and you've helped me so much with that.
Don't react.
Yes.
Let it
But
go.
yeah, yes. I can feel the personality react, but yet there's something that's aware of the reaction that's
Yes.
not being sucked into the reaction.
Yes.
Or if it does, it doesn't get as sucked in, and I might get sucked in a little bit, and then there's this awareness that I got sucked in, and then
Yes.
even that awareness
Perfect.
just kind of
Perfect.
pulls me back
Perfect.
from it. It's like I can't say I'm resting in this all the time, but it's like this play going back and forth, and it's there's
That's
this
great.
awareness.
That's great. Exactly.
Thank you for that so much, and everybody.
Comment about work.
I can't hear you, Frank.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
No? Okay, never mind. I'll come back.
We can hear you, but it's muffled.
Want to try again?
You hear me? Yeah. One of the things that had to fall away was this idea that I shouldn't be working. I know you talk about it a lot, Ed, and other people do, and yet life seems to be asking that I still work. And so to rail against what life is asking of me is pointless. And instead it has become that work is simply another activity that the mind is doing, but not something that I'm doing. And there has become an actual greater freedom in simply showing up for the tasks at hand. It's my version of chopping wood and carrying water, I suppose. There's just been a great relaxing in me by letting go of the idea that I'm not supposed to be doing what life seems to be asking that I do. And to know that I'm not the doer of it, it's being done.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Frank. That's actually what came to mind for me as well. The before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And I'm younger, so I'm still very much immersed in the work world. And I take that with me. I do very simple work as a baker, and there's this magical spot that comes and goes, but there's this beautiful letting go that happens where I can just allow the body to do what the body already knows how to do, and just sort of step back and relax and rest in that, and observe how beautiful everything unfolds when I don't have to get involved, when I don't have to involve myself at all, that because the body knows what it has to do, or the mind knows what it has to do if you're involved in something more intellectual. And you can just step back from it and observe how wonderful the process is of allowing yourself to do that work or be engaged in that work. And then it seems to unfold perfectly, better than if I were to try to involve myself on a more personal level. But yeah, I really enjoyed what you had to say about that Frank. So thank you. And thank you, Jay, for sharing what you shared. That was lovely as well. And everybody.
No, first off, I've got a cat napping on my lap, and it is so peaceful. Okay, I've got kind of the opposite experience of what you're talking about, Frank. I have an opportunity to retire, and my deal with that is to let myself not work, because I have been working, controlling, and to me, it seems to not work would be denying what life has in store for me. So I'm trying to relax into not working. Relax, shut up, show up, just see what happens. Who am I? What am I? What am I feeling? What do I want? So that's where I'm at. With a cat. Two cats.
Chris, as soon as life says to me, okay, enough working, I will be happy to receive that. It just isn't saying that to me now.
This cat here is trying to engage me in every possible way to pay attention to him. And he has more immediacy than anybody here in the group, because he can dig his nails into my stomach. And that makes me pay attention to him. So unless you grow some nails. How are you doing, Michael?
Good.
Well, I think I'll go now, so I can attend to him more fully, so he gets his claws out of my stomach. Oh, he's going anyway. I didn't mean to ignore you, sweetie. I was busy and I ignored you. I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you. I'll feed you something extra special today. Some tuna. Anyway, I see we all have our cats nearby, or our dogs, or our lack thereof. But I love you. And I know it's so hard to become comfortable with who and what you are without having something to do, somewhere to go, something making you react, saying, listen to me, listen to me. do this, do that. See, like he is. He's taking me away from you and all this important crap I was communicating to you about your salvation. But he appears to be very comfortable harassing me, getting my attention. And I love you all. I really do. And I just try my best to communicate some ways of escaping from being human, escaping from the mundane world, and to find out that there is a divine world that you can live in where everything is so very different, where you're constantly happy and rested because you have nowhere to go, nothing to do, except teaching others how to go nowhere and have nothing to do and to gain happiness in that giving up and just being yourself, which is not the human being. You're not humans. That's a story you live in. But you're something far, far, far greater than that. You're pure peace and pure happiness inside, pure joy and rest, and so peaceful. I love you all.
Thank you, Ed, so much.
I think I'm going to go sit on the rowing machine behind me and do nothing.
There you go. Videotape it too.
Okay.
Okay, who am I going to turn this over to? Bernadette and Chris. See if you can make people go to sleep even more than they already have been. Relax, relax, relax. Bye-bye.